Mark Shklov, and this program is called Law Across the Sea. And the idea behind this program is to give people of Hawaii a glimpse into international law and how it touches our shores. Now, before I went to law school, in fact, while I was still in college, I spent a year in Tokyo. And that was a great year for me, and it's really shaped my life and my profession ever since. I still have many friends that I met when I lived and studied in Tokyo, and I enjoyed that environment and the culture, learning about the people, learning about Japan. And I always thought, what if I had gone back? What if I'd gone back to work and live in Japan? I never did that, and it's always kind of been in the back of my mind. But today, my guest is someone who did actually go back. He went back to Japan, lived there, worked there for many years. His name is Keith Suzuka, and I guess I told him to wear what he would normally wear in Japan. So, and I will say, Ohio gozaimasu. Keith, you're welcome. It's so good to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
Today. Now, I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself first. You're a local boy.
Yes, I am.
Okay. What's your background here in Hawaii?
Well, born and raised in Hawaii. I lived on Maui for a few years, but other than that, basically Manoa Elementary, Stevenson, Roosevelt, University of Hawaii graduate.
Okay, and then you went on to law school at Hastings, is that right?
Yes, I did.
Hastings, and then after law school, what happened? What did you do after law school?
Well, actually, even before law school, when I graduated from the University of Hawaii, like I always am, I wasn't ready to apply for law school, hadn't put all my papers in yet, so I decided to go to Japan. And so I started my Japan experience even before going to law school.
Okay, now, but was law school always in your mind? I mean, it was something you always wanted to do?
Yeah, my brother's a doctor. I didn't want to be a doctor, so I decided I'll go to law school. And I decided to go to law school after going to Japan.
So you wanted to wait a year before doing that?
Well, I couldn't get my act together, so I had to wait a year while I actually applied to law school from Japan, which was a pain in the butt, borrowing a typewriter. Back then, you didn't have computers, so borrowing a typewriter, typing, 10 applications for law school, putting them in the mail and sending it off.
Okay, so you finished college.
Yes.
Here at UH, and I note that you did pretty well in college here. Phi Beta Kappa, I believe.
Yeah, something like that.
and then decided to go to Japan. What drew you to Japan?
And actually in the newspaper they just sort of mentioned again, but back then, if you recall, there was the show Roots. It had just played a year or so before. I was fascinated with people sort of discovering their path, their ancestors and where they came from and things. So I had a choice between Paris, because I studied French for 8 years, or Japan that I'd never been to, and I decided that I would rather go to Japan than Paris, and the rest is history.
Okay, so finding your roots
Yes.
was important, and in those days, as when I was going to college, there was a lot of programs in Europe, not too many in Asia, and you had your eyes on law school, but you wanted to have this experience in Japan. Did you speak Japanese?
No, I spoke a little French, but I didn't speak any Japanese.
Okay. So what did you do to get into that Japan program, or what was that program?
Actually, I applied to a bunch of schools in Japan. Got into ICU, Sophia, some of the more famous ones, but I actually did not know if I would like Japan. So I landed up picking the one school that would let me stay for one semester instead of a year, and that was Kansai Gaidai in Osaka. And so that's the school I picked, and then I, obviously fell in love with Japan.
Okay, and so did you spent a year there, or?
I extended. I spent a year there. I started off with Japanese 101. I decided that I really liked Japan. I liked the language. I took a test. I asked the teacher if I could take 201 instead of 102. Studied for the test, took 201. Came back to the University of Hawaii between law school and Japan. Asked the University of Hawaii if I could take a test and skip 301 and take 302. No, I skipped 202 instead and take 301. So at the University of Hawaii, I actually took 301 and 302 in the summer before law school.
Okay, so you learned the language.
Yes.
You hadn't spoken it before.
Yeah.
So for you young people going over there, there's still a chance, even if you haven't studied it as a youngster.
Yes.
And you went to law school, went through law school, and then after law school, you came back here.
Yes.
And you got a job here, or what?
Yes, I got a job at a Japanese-focused law firm. It was a small firm, only about 12 lawyers, but they represented a huge portion of the Japanese clients in Hawaii.
Okay. And what was that firm?
The name of that firm was Fong and Miho.
Okay. And at some point in time, what happened? I mean, some point in time, you decided, just like I had wanted to, but you actually put it into action. You decided to go back to Japan. What prompted that? How did that get it work?
I had given up on the idea of going back to live in Japan. I was there, I was single, I loved it. Went to law school, came back, I was now a lawyer. I was married, and then I soon thereafter had a child, had a mortgage, and thought I would never get back to Japan again. And then one day, it's kind of a little long story, but is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, well, one day my boss, John Miho, came back from his business trip in Japan, and he said, there's a large Japanese law firm who would, this is during the Japanese bubble, who would love to have one of our real estate associates work for them.
And how long had you been there?
At the firm, I probably had been there about 6 years.
Okay.
And I stuck up my hand, and I said, John, what about me? And he said, are you serious? You have a kid, you have a mortgage, you're willing to just kind of, you're on partnership track, you're willing to just go to Japan. And I said, yeah, I would love to go to Japan. The funny part about this story is I didn't tell my wife. so I'm actually in Japan to be the best man for a buddy of mine who I knew at Kansai Gaidai, and my buddy says, and so I'm the best man. It's hot. It's August. We're in Shinjuku. Shinjuku in the summer is probably one of the worst places in the world to be. It's hot and muggy and everything, and I get a call from John saying, Keith, I'm in Tokyo as well. I'm at the Japanese law firm. I'd like you to come meet the managing partner. And I said, and I haven't told my wife.
And she's there with you?
She's there with me. We're there for the wedding. And I said, oh, John, I'm so busy. I'm leaving for Hakone the next day. I'll call you when I get back from Hakone. Of course, I didn't call John. I come back from Hakone, and I'm hoping that I can just leave Japan without seeing John, because I haven't told my wife anything about this. And he calls me again, and he says, Keith, I'm at the law firm. The managing partner is right next to me. We want you here in an hour. I said, oh, jeez, now I gotta go. So I went. I walked into the conference room, and the managing partner, his name was Hisashi Hara, he says, when can you start? He doesn't even ask my name. He just sticks out his hand and he says, when can you start? And I'm just struggling, trying to find every excuse because I haven't told my wife any of this. And he said, can you start next month? And I said, oh, don't I have to have a visa? He says, oh, okay. How about in October or something like that? He gives me a couple of months. I go back to the hotel. My wife is waiting there. She's saying, gee, Keith, can't John leave you alone while here on vacation? I said, yeah, that's the kind of guy he is. He's just, there's no line between work and private. And I'm so afraid to tell Faith that I'm actually just accepted a job in Tokyo. And so that night, while we're drinking, having dinner, I finally got up enough courage and I said, actually, we're going to be moving here. And my wife she'd never been to Japan before. She's in Shinjuku in August. It's miserably hot. And she says, what about Kelly, our daughter? What about the house? And, so we worked it all out. My wife was very patient. She came with our daughter who was a year and 9 months. And we moved over to Japan.
Okay, so that was an interesting time in Japan, too.
Yes.
You said the bubble.
Bubble.
What did that mean? I mean, what was going on there? I mean, they wanted an American lawyer to come.
Yes.
And they wanted a Hawaii lawyer,
Yes.
too.
Yes.
To be there
Yes.
in Japan. Why was that?
Yeah, if you recall back then, I don't remember the exact percentage, but I would say that Japanese companies like Azabu, Otaka, there were so many different developers that had bought hotels and development properties all over the islands. And so they had bought all of these properties, and this Japanese firm, Nagashima Ono, was basically representing all these investments all over the world, in New York, in London, in Hawaii. And what was needed was somebody who understood not Japanese real estate law, which is very different, but somebody who needed to understand how law was done in common law countries.
Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more after the break on that. So we're going to take a break right now and learn a little bit later about how Keith practiced law in Tokyo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha! Hello, my name is Patrick Bratton. I'm host of Global Connections here at Think Tech Hawaii. We broadcast live every Thursday at 1 p.m. We bring Hawaii to the world and the world to Hawaii, talking about international events and various things of interest to the audience. Please join me. I look forward to talking with you and having you get to meet some of my guests. Aloha.
You're watching Think Tech Hawaii, offering lifelong learning from passionate hosts and fascinating guests ready to explore and explain Hawaii's place in the 21st century. Great content for Hawaii from Think Tech.
Hi, I'm Kili'i Akina, president of the Grassroots Institute. I'd love you to join us every week, Mondays at 2 o'clock p.m. for E Hana Kako. Let's work together. We report every week on the good things going on in our state, as well as the better things that can go on in the future. We have guests covering everything from the economy, the government, and society. See you Mondays on E Hana Kako at 2 o'clock p.m. Until then, I'm Kili'i Akina. Aloha.
Okay, we're back with Keith Suzuka talking about his life and practice of law as an expat Hawaii lawyer in Tokyo, Japan. And when I was in Japan, I made many friends. Many of them are my friends to this day, and we're talking 45 years. And those relationships are things that I can hold on to from my experience in Japan. Now, Keith,
Yes.
what was your experience? Did you have, as far as the practice of law, what type of law did you do in Tokyo for the Japanese law firm?
Right. The Japanese law firm is, currently it's in the top 5. It actually, at the time I was there, it was the largest law firm.
Nagashima.
Nagashima Ono Tsunematsu, and they're the largest law firm in the country, which when I was there the very first time, there were about 40 lawyers. Now there are about 400 lawyers. So there's been tremendous change on the legal landscape as well. Because they were very international, and probably to this day, they're the most international law firm there. They basically represent, we represented Suzuki Motors, we represent all of the different Sapporo, any law firm, a company that was doing something abroad, they would be buying factories, building things.
And what were they doing in Hawaii?
Hawaii?
In this time of the
very-
bubble.
the bubble time.
What were they doing in
The
Hawaii?
bubble time, they were buying hotels. That was the main thing. But if I was there from 1990 to 92, so the bubble was already starting to see cracks in it. And so then there were a lot of workouts with the lenders, the Japanese banks like Chogin and Mitsui Trust and Bank, to sort of work out their loan situation.
Almost like bankruptcy type.
Sort of like that,
bankruptcy. And compared to what you were doing in Hawaii,
Yeah.
what was it, the same type of work, or?
Yeah, pretty much. Except I was sort of on the client side. I now represented the Japan side, and working with a Hawaii law firm to explain what the client's goals and needs were, to look at the reports and to make recommendations to them. So I was, sort of like representing the Japanese client in interpreting and figuring what to do with the Hawaii law firm's work.
And did it help to speak the language?
Yeah,
Was
it does. I mean, and even to this day, you can get away without speaking Japanese and still working in a Japanese law firm. But it's tremendously helpful, yeah, if you do speak. I think speaking and reading are tremendously important. Writing is not as important, but if you can read what the client's asking you, that's very helpful.
Okay, so you were there for 2 years.
Yes.
And then you came back.
Yes.
And I know you went back again.
Yes.
Give us a kind of the synopsis of what happened.
Right. Well, I came back to the Hawaii law firm that I had left, and with John Miho, and I was a partner there till 1999. So I came back in 92 and I was a partner through 1999. At that time, the Japanese bubble had completely collapsed, and actually the banks had taken back property and it had disposed of them. I represented during that period of time Japanese banks disposing of their asset, and there was a retraction of Japanese back to Japan.
But it helped to have your experience in
Yes.
Tokyo, because when you came back, you got some of the same.
That's right.
Japanese
I
clients.
sort of just kept switching. I was on the other side of the Pacific, sort of, well, in the middle of the Pacific and the other side of the Pacific, sort of doing the same type of thing.
Okay, and then when did you get back to Japan?
In 1999, for the very first time, Japan was looking like it was actually going to change. The concepts that were sort of radiating from the government were concepts like transparency, globalization. And so these were concepts that were being reflected in the laws, the legislations that were being passed. And it was a very exciting time. Actually, in 1999, I don't know if you recall, but all of a sudden, securitization of assets, both loan collectibles and real estate assets, were being packaged up and securitized as a form of getting them off the balance sheet. And that's the type of work that I was sort of geared for.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like kind of a niche.
Yeah. Well, if you were a real estate lawyer, then you had a lot of work back then.
I see. And the economy in Japan, how was it coming back at that time? Or was it still kind of on a level?
Japan has been sort of in this gray zone for such a long time. It probably still is, sort of, in a way. But yeah, back then it improved slightly. The policies of the government were starting to take hold, and it was getting better. But there was still a lot of bad debt.
Okay, now, in order to be a foreign lawyer from
Yes.
Hawaii in Japan, what did you have to do? I mean, how could you, was it legal to practice there, or did you have to take a bar exam, or did you have to join a bar association? What did you have to do?
Basically, there's two major ways to practice law as a foreigner in Japan. One is to pass the Bengoshi Shihoshiken, the bar exam.
The bar exam,
And,
in Japanese.
In Japanese, and the passage rate at that time was 3%.
For Japanese.
For anybody. Oh yeah, for Japanese, that was optimistic. If you were a foreigner taking it in Japanese, then your chances were probably substantially lower. That's a great understatement. But in any event, yeah, you could pass the bar exam, or you could register as a gaiben. And registering as a gaiben just meant that you were able to practice the law of your home jurisdiction in Japan.
Which was Hawaii, or
Hawaii.
was it United States?
Well, it's Hawaii and then federal law. And to get that qualification, it's just a registration system. So you don't have to take any exam. You just have to show that you are of moral character, and that you are you have been licensed as a lawyer for so long and practiced as a lawyer for so long.
And you didn't have to, did you need a sponsor or anything like that? Or?
Yeah, you do. I think, but it doesn't have to be your law firm. In my case, it was easy because I had, I was with a very large Japanese firm, and so they just said, "You two sponsor this guy," and so it was easy for me.
Okay, and did you have to join a bar association?
Yes, you pick amongst three. In Tokyo, there's 3 bar associations. I had, I picked the Daini, the second bar association, which actually the reason was that it was, there were a lot more foreigners in that one at that time anyway.
I see. Now, speaking of foreigners.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tokyo is a big city, a lot of things going on. Even in bad economic times, it's bustling.
Yeah.
And there were 4 other foreign lawyers there.
Yes.
And I'd like to kind of ask you about two points. There were foreign lawyers from many countries. There was foreign lawyers from the United States.
Yes.
And there was also a group from Hawaii. Is that right? Are there?
Well, we're actually part of the United States.
Yes. Good point.
Yeah.
Sometimes I forget that when I long for the kingdom. But yeah, but there, from some of the other states.
Yes.
And how was it? A big group, or was there a lot of these foreign lawyers?
Well, Hawaii, it's actually, I forgot the exact statistics, but Hawaii was, I think, as far as registered gaiben, probably had the 5th largest group of licensed lawyers practicing in Japan. That meant, I think, California and New York were maybe number 1 and 2. You had Australia, and then I think it might have been something like, I don't know, Canada, something, Singapore. And then Hawaii, this little state of Hawaii actually had a tremendous amount of lawyers.
Why is that?
I think Hawaii is just, Japan is very relevant to Hawaii. Hawaii is very relevant to Japan. And there's a lot of business that flows back and forth. There's just a lot of, it's not a big deal. It's not as big a deal to go to live from Hawaii to go and live in Japan.
And is that the cultural thing, or is it?
I think
what is it? What makes the affinity between Hawaii and Japan?
There's historical commonality. There's cultural commonality. There's a geographic closeness. There's just a lot of things. I think the fact that Hawaii has a very large Japanese American population. We have relatives in Japan. We know the culture. We have the same foods. All of those things make it not such a huge leap to go into Tokyo. And we had a very large group. I just saw the list of Hawaii lawyers stationed in Japan right now, mostly in Tokyo, some in Yokohama, and Nagoya, Osaka. But I would say it's probably about 70 lawyers now.
Okay, and this group of Hawaii lawyers, I've met some of them and gone to various activities and events with them. But did you have get-togethers? Did you have a name for your group, or what was that about? Was this kind of a family ohana type thing, or what
Yeah.
was the relationship with the Hawaii lawyers in Tokyo?
Yeah, I guess we called ourselves something like the Hawaii Bar Association, and the bar had a couple of meetings, but we gathered a lot. We gathered maybe 3 times a year, and got together. It was a ohana. It wasn't anything formal. We tried to help each other out when there were jobs and things that the people were looking for. But as a general rule, it was just a bunch of friends with a big common point being that of Hawaii.
And did you have a favorite place you'd go to, or did you have some get together? That's where you went, the Hawaii place. Or
Yeah,
like
there's a restaurant bar, Hawaiian bar called Ogo Onoloa.
Ogo
Onoloa. It's in Akasaka Mitsuke. My very, very good friend Ryoji Soranaka owns it, and it turned out to be the Hawaii Cheers, the place that everybody goes. And so I was there maybe about 5 times a week, either for lunch or for dinner. And I didn't have to actually make plans to meet friends. I would just go there. I sort of had my little table, and people would just walk in, and inevitably somebody I knew would be there, and so we'd have a drink.
And was this Hawaii-style food and
Hawaii food, probably. I'm a little prejudiced, but I say it's probably better than stuff you can get in Hawaii. It's very, very good Hawaiian food. That lau lau, kalua pig, poke, those types of things.
Okay. All right. So we'll maybe go back and talk a little bit more about your life in Tokyo, and also some of the feelings that you had while you were there, being from Hawaii in Japan after the break. Thank you.
I'm Jay Fidel, and I'm the host of Research in Manoa, Mondays from 12 to 1 on thinktechhawaii.com. Take a look at us and learn about geophysics, learn about planetology, learn about the ocean and earth sciences at UH Manoa. You'll really enjoy it. So come around, we'll see you then.
Aloha, I'm Kaui Lucas, host of Hawaii is My Mainland, here on Think Tech Hawaii every Friday at 3 p.m. We address issues of importance for those of us who live here on the most isolated landmass on the planet. Please come join me Fridays at 3 p.m. Mahalo.
Aloha, my name is Richard Emery, host of Condo Insider. More than a third of Hawaii's population live in some form of association, and our show is all about educating board members and owners about their responsibilities and obligations and providing solutions for a great association. You can watch me live on Thursdays, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. each week. Aloha.
Now, when I lived in Japan, when I was in college, and it had such a life-changing experience for me, some of the places I went included Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Hiroshima's been in the news quite recently, and I'd kind of like to get Keith's feel about, and these are all opinions of his time there and the relationship, which we've talked a little bit about, between Hawaii and Japan. And Keith, when you were there, you were again working for a big law firm in Tokyo, and here it's kind of interesting. You're a local boy, Japanese background, right?
Yes.
And you come from Hawaii, and that's where Japan started the war with the U.S. at Pearl Harbor, and then you are there where we, United States, ended the war at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Was there much talk about this, or was there underlying feelings about this, or were between either you and your Hawaii friends and buddies, or your Japanese tomodachi friends that you met while you were there?
Yeah, I think too much, well, time has passed. And so none of that is directly relevant to me and to most of my friends. So there wasn't that much, I couldn't sense any real remnants of that type of the war or Pearl Harbor or Hiroshima, those types of things. I'm sure that there are people that still feel very passionately about those types of things. But from my perspective, the Hawaii connection, Mark, whenever anybody asks me where I'm from, I never say I'm from the United States. I say I'm from Hawaii. I get a heck of a lot more points in that person's mind by saying I'm from Hawaii. I think there is this real special
You mean the
connection.
Japanese?
Yeah, Japanese, yeah. They ask me, oh, where are you from? And I say I'm from Hawaii. And all of a sudden, I've gone up a whole bunch of notches. I'm not saying that people look down or badly upon the U.S., but they just look really well upon Hawaii.
Okay, so a couple questions.
Yeah.
I mean, one, why do you think the Japanese have this special feeling for Hawaii? One question. And secondly, do they, you went to Hiroshima, I assume, and what were your feelings about it? And I have my own thoughts about it, but first of all, what is this special relationship with Japan, Hawaii?
I'm not an expert. I don't really know my own personal opinion. There's a lot of commonality between the group dynamics style in Hawaii and then in Japan. We're both sort of island cultures, and being an island culture, we put a lot of emphasis on things that family, friends, and I think Japan and Hawaii has that. It's reflective in the way we deal with people. It's reflective in the way we deal with people who come and visit us, and so there's a sense of hospitality. Omotenashi in Japanese, aloha spirit in Hawaii, that is actually, when taken to the hospitality level, it's pretty much the same thing, at least in my mind. Japanese people, this is probably more the result, but they love surfing, they love hula, they love ukulele, they love the lifestyle of Hawaii. So all of those things I think are very important as well.
It's kind of interesting to find that appreciation for Hawaii thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
And when you went, what was your appreciation for going to Hiroshima? What was your feeling about that? And what did you feel when you went there?
I listened to President Obama's speech at Hiroshima, and I thought it was beautiful. I will probably get a lot of people that disagree, and I apologize to those that feel differently, but I thought his speech captured very much my own feelings, which was, war is horrible. Humanity we hope has learned a lesson, and we hope that we're taking steps to let that kind of thing never happen again. There's this deep, piercing sadness that comes by visiting that place. But I don't get the thing, and maybe it's because I'm not of that generation, but I don't think about war and enemy and those types of things. I think about sadness and let's not ever have that happen again. And that's what I thought President Obama's speech was about.
Right, and I kind of felt the same way when I heard that speech, and also when I was hearing a lot of the political talk about is this an apology? And I didn't really see this as an apology. I kind of saw this as forgiveness. I mean, here is President Obama from Hawaii going to Hiroshima, and in a way he's recognizing that the war is not right,
Yeah.
and maybe the forgiveness from each side is what is needed more than
Yeah.
an apology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgiveness and let's learn something and take something from this. Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a beautiful speech.
And one of my best friends, who I met in college, his father was a soldier in World War II. I never questioned him about that.
Right.
And my father was a soldier in World War II, although in Europe. But I mean, those things are past.
Yeah.
And if we can learn to forgive, perhaps that's the route that I would see as rather than an apology
Yeah.
type thought. And I would think that would go with any political party.
Yeah.
That they would accept that. But thanks for letting me put my viewpoint. Now, for somebody who wants to practice law in Japan, what would you recommend? What a young person, they're about to go to college, they're thinking about law. What should they plan? What should they do if they want to go to Japan and practice law
Yeah.
or have a career there?
You know, I was in charge of hiring at the Japanese law firm of foreigners that wanted to work. And so I had a lot of time to think about it, and I gave a lot of advice, good or bad, I'm not sure. And it actually evolved over time as well. So, but I think my general advice is, and it has changed over time, but it still, I think, fundamentally, if you're a Hawaii lawyer, then learn Hawaii law first. So when you graduate, if possible, and I know economics and other situations don't always make it possible, but if possible, spend 2, 3, 4 years learning Hawaii law. A Japanese law firm, an American law firm, they're not hiring you because you're going to pass the Shihoshiken, the Japanese bar exam, and become a Japanese lawyer. They're hiring you because you bring a set of skills and knowledge about your home jurisdiction. So learn that well. Get that down. I don't think it makes a huge difference whether you're talking about litigation or transactional. Both they're different types of practices, but they translate and transfer relatively well into an international environment. If you're good, you're passionate, you are diligent, then whether you're a litigator or whether you're a transactional lawyer, that's what I am. You can pull it off abroad.
Okay, I'd like to, we do have a question that's come in.
The practice of law, okay, I should probably qualify by saying, first of all, I worked in a very large law firm in Japan. So my experience comes from a very international focused large law firm. So there, which maybe makes up about 5% of all lawyers in the country. So most lawyers are in 5 lawyer law firms, one single man law firm, and their practice is completely different. But within the international level of practice, I liked practicing in Japan. I think their balance is a lot better. And what I mean by that,
Life.
oh, no, life balance sucks. You work really hard there. But I don't have a problem working really hard. Yeah, back there, the associates probably go home at 1, 2, 3 o'clock on a
Okay,
work day.
so the question was,
Yeah.
what do you dislike?
Right.
But you didn't dislike that.
Oh, it's dislike. I really liked everything about practicing law. I think the balance that I was referring to is you're able to do many things. They're not so specialized like in the U.S. In the U.S., I'm afraid to do almost anything unless I've done it many times because we've specialized our practice so much. In Japan, you feel a little bit more comfortable to help clients with their general needs. Dislike, I'm sorry, I don't really have.
You enjoyed your time there.
Yes.
You enjoyed all the experiences, but the one point that you could bring up that might be a dislike is that you work pretty hard.
Yeah, I don't have a problem working hard. Yeah.
I hear you, but what would the normal day be? I mean,
Okay. I think as a young associate, they're the ones that work the hardest. I would say you probably get in at about 9:30 in the morning, which is relatively late, and you probably work till about midnight to about 1 or 2. I'll give you a small little anecdote. When I was working there doing the real estate syndication securitization time, I actually picked up the phone. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I called my counterpart in an American law firm, and I said, "May I speak to Mark?" And somebody picked up and said, "Gee, I'm sorry. I think Mark he's not here right now." And I said, "Well, is Mark coming back?" And he said, "No, I think he went home for today." I said, "Okay, thank you. I'll call back tomorrow." I hung up, and then I realized it's 3 in the morning. And it didn't even for a moment, I didn't think that he had actually gone home to sleep. I thought he was just coming back. And so, is he coming back? When is he coming back is actually what I meant. But they work really, really hard there.
okay. And with respect to going, you were there for how many more years? You were there for
My third time, I was in Japan for about 14 years.
14 years. And you came back.
Yes.
Why? Why did you come back to Hawaii? I mean, you lived in
Yeah.
Japan for a long time.
Yeah.
You worked there. Obviously, you loved it.
Yeah.
You had a passion for it. Why come back to Hawaii at that point? What brought you back?
My parents are like all Hawaii people who go abroad. I think there are two moments in time where you sort of question what you're doing abroad. Well, one is when you have young children and you're talking about school. And I don't know, most people that I know, they think Hawaii is the best place to raise children. That's one time. The other time is when your parents are getting old. My parents were getting old. My dad had cancer, he passed away. But I remember talking to my dad, and he said, about coming back or staying in Japan. And he said, "Well, tell me this, are you going to stay in Japan forever, or are you going to come back to Hawaii?" And I said, "Oh, Dad, I've never thought I would ever live in Japan forever. I'm just I sleep on the floor. I don't have a dining table. For 14 years, I lived like a student in Tokyo because it was just a temporary thing." And so when my dad asked me that, and I said, "Oh, no, I'm coming back." Then he said, "Well, if it's just a matter of time, then you should figure out when is the timing the best." And with my parents getting old and things, the timing was the best. That's why I came back.
And now you're a partner with McCorston, Miller, Mukai, and McKinnon.
Yes.
And working with Japanese clients.
Yes.
And your young daughter is an attorney.
At Goodsill Anderson Quinn Stifel.
Okay. And does she have any desire to go to Japan and,
No.
and work?
She lived with me twice in Tokyo, but she's very happy in Hawaii.
And the type of work you're doing now focuses on
real estate, hotels, development, buying, selling, and those types of things.
And for Japanese clients?
I would say about, my clients are about 70 or 80% Japanese clients.
And how's the investment climate
It's
here?
very, very busy.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Last year was gangbusters. This year is very busy again.
Okay. Well, look, I hope that the future will prove to be good also. And domo arigatou gozaimashita. Thank you very much for being with me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This is really the first program of a few that I hope to have of expat attorneys from Hawaii who've gone beyond the reef and experienced Asia culture and practice. Thank you very much for tuning in.